Welcome to the Amplify Speakers Podcast. I'm your host, Chris Sund, and today I'm really excited for the guests that we have. We have Shari Collins, who is an award-winning leadership expert and business owner. She's recognized as a top 100 global power leader, a top 10 rising voice of 2026, and one of the most admired leaders to watch by Insight's Success magazine. Shari serves as an advisory board member for Harvard Business Review. She sits on the editorial board of the Infonomics Society in London and is the diversity director for the HR Nebraska State SHRM Council. Shari is also a certified chief well-being officer through the World Happiness Academy, a published author, and a sought-after keynote speaker on workplace culture, positive psychology, in real colors. Wow. With that background, I think it's good for us to just start at the beginning. Shari, can you tell us about your career journey and how all those experiences led you to become a business owner?
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Chris. I appreciate it. So my background is actually a teacher. I started teaching in the 80s and I remained in the classroom till around 2012. And then I wanted something a little different, but I didn't know exactly what. So I took a job in Iowa at the Department of Ed at an AEA area education agency. So I was out doing professional development pretty much every day. I had around 70 schools in my territory. So I was out doing professional development, doing all sorts of teaching and training and sharing initiatives from the Department of Ed. And I realized I really loved working with adults. Not that I didn't love the kids when I had them, but just that switch that I had as I got older, I knew I wanted to work with adults. But we never ever moved over to my territory. So every day it was like a 2-hour drive on each side. It was before COVID, so we really didn't have work from home time. So I was always driving really, really long days. So one day I was thinking about dreading the drive the next day as I was coming home. And my husband said, I think it's time maybe to think about something else. So I did some learning and development roles around Omaha and nothing really felt fulfilling. My husband would always say they don't know how to utilize you right. They're not using you right. And I couldn't wait for the day to end where I could get home and start studying things about workplace culture, which I loved. And one day I just decided, why am I doing this for everybody else? I have the skills. I can do it as a business owner. So I really just dove in. I didn't know what I was doing as far as the business goes. I didn't even have a website. I didn't have an invoice form. I didn't have a lot of things, but people were contacting me to see if I could come into their organizations to provide training. So that's really how it started. I probably wasn't as prepared as I should have been, but I was passionate about it and I jumped in and did the things. So that's a little bit of my journey.
That's incredible. I love how you just jumped in, kind of worried about let's say the business side, the behind the scenes business, but you figured out how to solve people's problems.
Mhm.
And so people are seeking you out, which is probably the most important part of the business. Um, did you have people help you, though, figure out some of those behind the scenes things that you need to do to still operationally
Yeah,
function?
I've had a lot of really great mentors, some that are in the speaking biz, some that are in the consulting side of things, some that are really in marketing and social media. So I have a lot of people supporting me in unofficial roles, just as support roles. My husband helps me with my finances because I'm not really great at that. Sometimes he reminds me, honey, did you send an invoice today? And I'm like, oh yeah, I've got to send an invoice. And he reminds me, like, people just aren't going to send you money. So there's things that I can get better on as far as the business side. I just really want to be in front of people. That's what I love, and that's what I'm most passionate about.
Oh, I love that. So, you know, I guess the first thing I'd like to know, there's so many different things you can train and consult on, but you've really honed in on the culture piece. Why do you believe culture matters so much?
Yeah. So, having been in the business world for so long, I got to see the whole range of things. I got to see wonderful leaders and thriving organizations, which is what I want to replicate. but I also got to see a lot of the other side of just poor leadership, bullying and exclusion, lack of mentoring, and those kind of things. So I really wanted to focus on what can we do to make organizations better, because there's so many strategies. Sometimes they're very, very easy to implement. Sometimes people just don't know. And what we know about leadership is often leaders will just replicate leaders that they have had in the past, even if they're good or not good. That's just the behavior that they know. Another piece with leadership is sometimes we promote people to be leaders who maybe have a specific skill. For example, in a hospital setting, maybe somebody is the best IV giver on the whole floor. That doesn't necessarily mean they're going to be the best leader of people. But sometimes we promote those folks just as what I call accidental leaders, and they're just doing the best that they can. So sometimes they just need a little bit of help with some strategies, some mentoring and some sponsorship, which is really great. That can go a long ways in the workplace. But that's really why I want to focus on it, because I do feel like without some of those strategies, there is a lot of harm that can happen in the workplace, not intentionally, but just harm that happens because of things that happen that aren't addressed. So I feel like that's something that, because of my purpose, I want to get in there and help people to be better and do better.
I love that that's your focus on helping people do better and be better. And I don't know if there's a much better place to really lean into than focusing on culture.
Mhm.
Now, I feel like culture means something different
Yeah.
to everybody. I'd love to hear from you. How do you define culture? What does culture mean to you?
Yeah, culture, it is. It's so big. I think the best way for me to correlate it is by using the term psychological safety, because that's one of my most requested trainings, where people have those four different levels of psych safety, where they're welcomed in. That's part of the culture, where you can learn together, when you can speak up and share your ideas, then when you can be creative, that's the next threshold, and when you can challenge the status quo. I feel like all of those things are really strong contributors and correlations to workplace culture. And you're right, it means so many things to so many different people. And when I do my work internationally, it means really different things. Sometimes invisible, you can just get a sense like, oh, that's some workplaces, for example, don't want to focus on age if I'm in another country, for example. So it means it has different nuances and means different things in different countries. So that's really kind of interesting too.
Yes. I guess speaking of age, just kind of lean into that. I know you do a lot of training around that because it is a very relevant topic,
Yeah,
especially depending on who you're talking to.
yeah,
What's some of the things that you coach on or really like to give for takeaways when it comes to ageism?
yeah. So first, I'll say with ageism, Chris, I started to get really interested in it when I experienced ageism at work. That's just like a real honest answer. I in my 40s actually I saw things happening, but I didn't have the terminology or the language to say what it was. But I would see like women often interrupted, older women interrupted in meetings. Sometimes they'd fall off of calendar invites. Sometimes they didn't have access to information they needed to be successful. And I kept thinking, this doesn't feel right, but I didn't know what it was. So when I turned 44, I actually stopped counting my birthdays. I don't mean to get off track of your questions. I'm going to circle back to it. Don't worry. So I was 44 for many, 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 many years. And my kids would say, oh, it's mom's birthday. She's 44 again. And I'd be like, yeah, 44. We're going to stick with that. And we stuck with that until our son got his first adult job and he had to put me down as a beneficiary on his life insurance. And he called up and said, Mom, I know your birthday's January 5th, but I honestly can't remember what year you're born in because you've been 44 for so long. So there was like a moment where, okay, I've got to acknowledge my age and just take ownership of it. So I did that for several years. And then as I was in my later 50s, I started experiencing things like people wanted to shut down my voice or people didn't want to hear what I had to say. So in studying it, now I'm like, I can be bold. I can say the things. I'm in front of people talking about ageism and what it is. So a lot of people think ageism is just about the older folks in the workplace, and really it cuts both ways. It's about young professionals and it's also about older people. The research shows about 50% of young professionals say they experience ageism in the workforce, and about 75% of older people say they experience ageism. So it has all of those ramifications back to workplace culture, like we talked about, back to psychological safety, back to retention, collaboration, innovation, creativity, all of those things that we might measure for workplace culture. When I talk about ageism, I have some strategies that I've researched and studied. So a really great one is just implementing mentoring in your workplaces. That's super simple. Doesn't have to be a formalized program. Also, reverse mentoring is really valuable, and that's more of like a side to side model where the young folks are also sharing their experiences with their mentor or their older partner, and the learning goes both ways. So it's like a side to side model. There's a lot of research around that. Deloitte's done a lot of research. Retention is much, much greater when you have mentoring in your workplaces. There's also a lot of research. It sounds really simple, but having multi generational teams. The research shows that it's cut in half. If you don't have multi generational teams, you will not be outperforming your competition. So, with those trainings, it's asking people to look around the room and say, who is missing? If everybody in the room is like a 40-year-old person, do you have the safety to say, where are our older workers, or where are the people who are retiring soon? And where are those younger workers that we just hired? So multi-generational teams is something to look at. Shadow boards are also really, really cool. It's kind of a concept that a lot of people don't hear about. And it's like a shadow board of directors where we can get folks into those roles to experience what it's like to serve on a board where they may not have had that door open. Um, and then there's also something called a shadow director, kind of like shadowing, not getting an official promotion, but getting a shadow promotion where you kind of follow along with somebody that's doing the work. So you get to experience what that's like. So those are some things that I like to talk about. I have really 7 different uh, things to counter ageism. Those are just a few of them.
Wow. I really like the shadow promotion concept.
Yeah.
I have not heard of that.
Yeah.
That's a
A
great
lot
idea.
of people haven't heard. I can send you some information on that because that may be something you might want to consider for your workplace too.
Absolutely. I love
Yeah.
that. Yeah, I'd love to know your thoughts on this. Do you feel, when you've went into workplace and you've worked with them, let's say on this, and I get it can be a broader, but if you've ran into teams that were experiencing this or felt like they're experiencing it, like you use the example, and in my head, I was that was the example I start with. You got a team that's primarily, let's say, 40s, and where they have almost like a bias that
Yes.
hey, the ideal employee is somebody like me, and they
Hmm.
should be around here. And if they're younger, then they have these traits, or if they're older, they have this traits, or vice versa. Though
Yes.
the same thing happens if it's a senior, let's say a leader that is older, and the bias is hey, these younger workers, they're not like me, they're not going to do the job like I
Yes.
expect them to. Is that one of the things that you encounter?
Oh,
Is
yeah.
that bias?
Definitely. Yeah, it's definitely bias. It's called confirmation bias and affinity bias, both of those. So, confirmation bias is you're looking around to see something that supports your viewpoint. So, if you think your own age is like providing the right answers, that's going to confirm it. And if you hear someone much younger give an idea that you think is outlandish, you'll say, see, that's why we don't have those younger folks at our table because their ideas just don't make sense. So, that's one piece of bias. And then that affinity bias is the other. It's putting a mirror up in front of you. When you have someone that looks like you, that's what you want to give more credence to. So that would include age, all sorts of those diversity markers that we might have.
I love that.
Yeah. So
I want
bias is
to.
prevalent. Yeah. Sorry.
No, you're good. I kind of want to circle back to something you said earlier, and it's just like I keep hanging on to it. When you're talking about culture earlier, you were talking about no, just like a safe place to ask questions.
Yeah.
And I was listening to a talk the other week, It was a great TED Talk. It's an older one, but it just stuck out. Probably 10 years ago, I would say. Again, it's about creativity and it's a study.
Mhm.
And it was talking about, when we're younger, it was saying as people or adults, we need to be more creative. What's the concept behind it?
Yeah.
And as we're younger, our imaginations run wild.
Yes.
You color you have every color at your disposal. You look at the rooms of a preschool and it's just building blocks and everything you could ever think of.
Mhm.
And then as we get older and we go through school, it's a lot of don't talk until you're asked to be talked to, and this is how we need it done. And which is great. It's necessary, I think, for the education. But I worry then that trickles into the workplace and it creates not maybe necessarily just the workplace, maybe not realizing that they don't ask questions and create a sense to let people do that. But it might also be a little bit of just learned behavior going all the way through the education system.
Yeah. It's so funny that you bring that up because last night I was doing a workshop with a bunch of chiropractors from around the world. They are leaders in their own offices. So it was just a unique, fun group of people anyway. But one of the pieces I was talking about, it was about happiness and creativity as a piece of happiness, which is why I have the dots on my logo because I'm always like trying to connect the dots between all of these things and try to make sense of how it all connects to one another. But anyway, one of the examples is this concept called glimmers, where you just look at ordinary things and it's kind of a mindfulness practice. And I gave an example of when we were kids, we used to look at the sky and look at the clouds and say, oh, that looks like a sailboat. Oh, that looks like a happy face. Oh, that looks like a bear, or whatever the case may be. And I said, then as we get into adulthood, we don't take time to savor those little things. So it's that idea of what you're talking about. And there's a lot of research coming from the educational school side of exactly that with creativity. Color, use the red on this shape and stay inside the lines. That's what we're taught. And so much of that regulation that we have on our creativity. So, yes, part of it is learned, and part of it we have to relearn because that's how we're going to take our organizations into the next century. That's part of challenging the status quo. Part of it also, if you want to talk like a little bit about the brain, in our brain, we have those little almond shaped pieces that are called the amygdala that are like our emotional brain, and they're always signaling, looking for danger, watching for like the next shoe to drop or what's going to happen next. But when you have that sense of psychological safety, you feel like you're included and you're valued and people are listening to you, your amygdala can start to calm down. And that makes sense when we talk about creativity, because when that calms down, then other parts of our brain can be more creative. So if you think about it with true neuroscience, it does absolutely make sense.
It makes a lot of sense.
Yeah,
So if people feel anxious or in an environment
yeah,
where don't or feel stressed,
yeah,
overworked, or maybe even undervalued,
yes.
it's going to affect productivity and creativity.
Absolutely. Yeah. And think if you are in that situation, you're not being valued, you're not able to speak up, you're not invited to meetings, you were told by learning and development, nope, you can't get the certification, like all of those things are no's. Are you really going to want to be collaborative and give your best effort for a creative idea? Probably not, sadly. And I think
Oh,
the research, it's either 82% or 84. I think it's 84% of CEOs around the globe say that innovation is essential for the future of their companies. But yet, when you dig down into those CEOs' ideas, only 6% of them say they're happy with their own company's innovation. 6%. So think about that with creativity. And that's another important piece that I feel with culture and how that is one of those connect the dot moments as well.
oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
That kind of ties into I'm going to go off the creativity and what companies want.
Mhm.
Now, I say this kind of tongue in cheek. I'm the biggest culture fan you can find or and when it comes to valuing culture.
Yeah.
But not all business owners see culture
Mhm.
in that light.
Mhm.
And that's why I like to hear the definition of culture. So how do you, if I'm a business owner that goes, I just don't get it, I don't get the ROI, I don't get the investment
Yeah.
side of it. That's how my brain is functioning and thinking. Explain to me why I should be investing in it, why I should be focusing and prioritizing culture.
Yeah. So for all of those kind of people, I acknowledge in my trainings and speaking, yes, they exist. And I have to have some pieces of my talks that appeal to that kind of brain. Because I know some people want the creative thing, some people want the to-do list, just tell me what to do. But some of those brains, and some of those brains are the purse strings that are paying for these speakings and trainings. So you want to make sure you appeal to them as well. But just sharing statistics often resonates with them. If you can say, if we do these things, revenue overall could improve by 6 to 12%. Or if you say your retention rate could improve by a certain percentage, and then you put a dollar assigned to that of how much it truly costs to have someone quit and post the job and get them hired and go through onboarding. So oftentimes just sharing some statistics. And to go back to last night when I was talking about happiness with the chiropractor group, I started off by saying sometimes people think happiness is too fluffy to talk about at work. But I gave 5 statistics that were very compelling. One being creativity, one being around revenue, one being around retention. And they all were like, those were really good statistics to get us thinking, because I was kind of assuming chiropractors, just with the nature of their business, would want some hard and fast data of why we're doing this. So that's really how I approach it, Chris. Some people are more people oriented, and you can just tell a story and they're like, oh, absolutely, this is all I need to hear. Others have to hear some of those data points for it to make number sense.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's what people value or prioritize is
Mhm.
gonna be different, and how each think and view things
Mhm.
is different. So I love the way you broke it down. So let's say I'm coming in, I go, I really am interested in using you, but I'm also looking at a few other coaches.
Yeah.
Hit me with one of your most powerful tips of advice that you would share right now to say, this is one of the things I'm going to teach and I'm going to impact. And this is why you should work with me.
Yeah. And honestly, I kind of say that, like, right? I've been an educator forever. I know how to talk to people. I know how to educate. I understand scope and sequence of the curriculum. I know what people need to hear first. I understand learning styles. I understand engagement, all of those kind of things. And I can get you this percent of people guaranteed will buy in after the training is over. Um, I really, this is going to sound silly, but I often don't have to sell myself, because sometimes my testimonials have almost done the work for me, if that makes sense. Or sometimes just interactions that I've had with people. Word of mouth, I think, is huge. So that really sells business, I think, as much as me saying to someone, yes, I can do this for you. I can come in, I can meet with your staff once a month over the course of a year, whatever the case may be. Um, it's something I could probably get better at, to be honest. And I think that's part of too being an older woman, is we were kind of raised not to be braggadocious. So sometimes that's something that I have to work with internally. I'm still trying to get better at that.
I get that. And
Yeah.
there's nothing wrong with being humble. And testimonials and references speak louder than our own words ever will.
Yeah. Yeah. I think so too. There's a lot of power in social media, as you know. Um, and that really is a big part of my business plan, is the business that I get from social media.
I
I've
love that.
Yeah, I've had people, last year actually, I had a lady from Florida that contacted me, and she said, I've been following you for over 2 years and I love the work that you do. And I was like, oh, what is your name again? Because I didn't remember interacting with her. And she gave her name, and I said exactly that back. I said, I'm so sorry. I don't recall seeing you on my posts. And she said, Oh, I've never liked a post or commented. I've just followed your work. And she said, I also gave your name to like my boss, my boss's boss, my colleague, and somebody else. And she said, they're all following you too, but not directly posting or liking or sharing. So I think you never know like who is watching your work either. And you can have that ended up being a big contract. So you just don't ever know how that work is going to impact your business.
I love that. Yeah, absolutely. You really don't. And I think I think like you said, without like want to just topic on the age, I don't think it's just age. There's a lot of people I've met with that have really great ideas. The self-doubt of posting them or how they feel about putting them out there and if how it's going to get viewed if they would put any of that advice out there, which is so sad because some of the best wisdom or knowledge we can get is just from each other and the wisdom that people have gained. But that's a real thing. Do you encounter that with some of your coaching, running into people that it's there? They're just really afraid to put it out there.
Yeah, absolutely. And to make that tie back to psych safety, I feel like it still is a piece of that as well. Like, is it safe for them to speak out to the world and say, this is my idea and I'm going to give it a whirl? Part of psych safety too is that willingness to make mistakes. And that's really hard for a lot of people, especially people that have that perfectionist thread that runs through them too. That's really tough to say, here's my idea. I don't have all the answers, but let's give it a try and see where it goes. I mean, that's kind of how I started my business, to be honest. I didn't really have all the answers in the beginning. I still don't, but way different than how I entered the business for sure.
But you did it
I
and you
did
put it
it,
out there and you knew you had something to offer and people
right?
find it valuable and now your people seek out you because of that. And I'm just grateful even for the chance to get to share your story with hopefully a lot more people that are listening in on this.
Same, thank you. And I will just add to that, Chris, that's probably my biggest regret is not starting sooner. So to give any advice to anyone, if you're thinking about it and you want to do it, I would say do it. Don't wait for some magical person to tap you on the shoulder. I don't know who that person would be, and say do it. If you have the momentum and you have the purpose and you want to do it, give it a try. What's the worst thing that can happen? And
I
I
love
always have that saying, like, if you believe it, you can do it. Like, put it out in the universe and see where it goes.
agreed completely. Like too often or not, we have ideas and we're afraid to tell people about them
Yeah.
and really put them on a piece of paper and hold ourselves accountable,
Yes.
which is too bad because they was just end up being dreams instead
Mhm.
of
Yes,
goals that we're capable of.
absolutely. That's exactly right. I was on a call today with a lady who wants me to put a proposal together for one of her conferences. And I'm not going to give like too much detail, but it's putting my whole theme of how I do things on its head. And she can see it. She's like, this is what I really want from you. I want this. And I'm like, I get it. It's just opposite of how I do things. So I have to have it done tomorrow. So I have tonight now to think about, okay, how is this going to work? Um, and if it doesn't go so great, then what? But I'm going to try it and meet her goals as best I can and yet stay authentic to what I need to do with my own content.
Yeah.
So I'll keep you posted on that.
I'm excited to hear how that goes.
Yeah.
Well, I think for those that haven't done a TED Talk or struggle with the idea of building a TED Talk versus a regular presentation,
Uh-huh.
it's that weaving in teaching with stories.
Yeah.
But I have to imagine, I mean, you have so many stories
Mhm.
and real life examples that I think you're probably more than capable of weaving it all together with.
Stories are really beneficial. And I think that is true, though. Once you've been in the workplace, you've seen a lot of things that you can pull some really great stories from. Yeah.
Yeah, because it can be the most simple story, but
Yeah.
it's relatable. And
Yeah.
then the light bulb goes off, and I'm like,
Yeah.
that's us here too. Or
Yes.
I've had that happen.
Yes. It's so simple. And when people start crying, you're like, oh my gosh, I guess that resonated.
Yes, I love that. So, kind of want to close out with you've worked with teams all over the world,
Yeah.
not just here in the US,
Right.
and you can tell how much you love what you're doing. I guess what's been the biggest impact or reward of you choosing this career path?
Oh, wow. Working with people around the world, I get to learn so many diverse perspectives from everyone. I absolutely love that. Um, Not to make it about food, but wow, talking about culture when you're like embedded in a country and working with people and organizations, like learning about their food and what's important, their family structures. That's all super fascinating to me. Just having like a network too of global people that are thought partners and that I know I can count on. That also feels really great, especially as like a solopreneur. It's just me. So I have to count on that social network that's so, so very important. That's one thing that I talk about in happiness work. Like I have to practice it myself because I know all of the research around that. So all of those things, being able to travel as work are also really, really great experiences. And I think just overall understanding what the human needs are across cultures, where we may look very different, our skin may look very different, but really we all have those same basic needs. Like we just want somebody to care about us. We want people to see us for who we are and respect our ideas. So that has been probably like I grew up on in a small town on a farm, right? So to have that too as my background and to be experiencing some of this is really pretty incredible. So that's
I
probably, yeah, the coolest thing about what I get to do.
I love that. What small town did you grow up in?
I grew up in Davenport, Nebraska. It's extraordinarily small. I think there were maybe 450 people in the town when I grew up there. It's kind of by Hebron, if you've ever heard of Hebron on Highway
Okay.
81.
Yeah.
So it's kind of in that neck of the woods. So yeah,
Man, I feel like I know a lot of the small towns, and I
yeah,
really haven't heard of that one.
yes,
Um,
yeah. It's pretty small.
so, I there's some you said, and it just you nailed it on the head. And I'd like you to say it again. You're just talking about people need to feel cared about and their ideas respected. I think the audience just needs to hear that one more time.
Yeah,
If you say the most important part, regardless of where you live, or
yeah. Is being valued, being seen, being heard, being respected. If I submit something on a culture survey or employee survey at work, does it go into a black hole or is somebody listening to me, right? It doesn't matter what country you're from, those just basic human needs are across the board. And that's so simple. And honestly, this is free, right? It doesn't cost anything at work to be a good human for the people that you work with. So I think that is the basis of everything that I do.
I love it. We were talking the other day about reciprocal leadership.
Yeah.
It's the idea of
Yeah.
if so many leaders talk about, I want this out of my employees, I want this from my team, I want
Yeah.
this. Go, so what are you giving them?
Mhm.
Because you get back what you put into them. And
Yes.
it's the very basic, we're giving them that we care about them and want to
Absolutely.
listen to them and hear them when they have an idea, is so, so powerful.
Yeah, it is.
And I think that's a big part of why you're so successful is it's just evident when listening to you talk and getting to know you, how genuine you are and how much you can just tell you care about helping people.
Yes,
So
absolutely.
I believe that is a big part of why you've been so successful in so many places.
Thank
Love
you.
working with
Thank you.
Shari.
And I think that too is part of that when your purpose and everything aligns, then you can go out into the world and do your thing. And that feels really like I am in alignment now with what I'm supposed to be doing.
Yeah, I agree. Not very many people get that is it ikigai, I want to say it's the term, where it's what you are
Oh,
passionate about
oh yes, yes.
and
The
what
Japanese.
is kind of needed
Hmm.
in the financial
Yes.
bucket
Hmm.
is there. It's
Yes.
usually more like this is what's needed of me and this is how
Mhm.
I can make money and my
Yes.
passion's up somewhere in this
Yeah.
space
Yeah.
up here and I get to see that in my free time. And
Hmm.
so the fact that you found this
Yeah.
alignment of something you're good at, you provide value in, and you're passionate about all lines, it's very special.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much for having me on. I really appreciated chatting with you. And I will send you that information on shadow boards, and then we can stay connected on LinkedIn and chat about it a little bit more.
I would love that. And for everyone listening, I'll be sure to post Shari's website information, her LinkedIn, and that information as well when we post out the episode as well. So if you're listening to this, go read the notes, and I'll have that all in there as well. Thanks
That's
again,
Yeah.
Shari.
Thank you, Chris. Have a super night.
All right. Bye.
Talk to you soon. Bye bye.